So if you've been looking into making permanent jewelry and micro welders, you might want to check out this one from HELIX, which comes with everything you need to get started, along with being really compact and portable. And here's everything you'd be getting with the starter set all laid out. That being said, it doesn't come with the canister of argon. You can buy this separately or locally. And this is completely optional, and I'll go over what it does later in the video. But your starter kit does come with a regulator for the argon along with a hose. You'll also get 20 feet of assorted chain, and comes in 5-foot rolls, and the chain material will be sterling silver and gold filled. And to go along with those, you get 100 jump rings in both of those materials as well. And don't worry, you're not limited to just those two materials. You can use this on all carats of gold, stainless steel, platinum, copper, brass, and even aluminum. And this does come with a stand or holder for your handpiece, so if you need to use both your hands for the piece, this is extremely helpful. We also included some of our all-natural jewelry cleaner, along with some polishing pads, and a fiberglass scratch pen. This way you can make sure everything is nice and clean before welding, and after. There's also some nice flush cutters included, that way you can easily cut this supplied chain to size, or other thin metals. We also included some eye protection so you don't damage your eyes or anyone else's when using the welder. And actually setting everything up is pretty straightforward. You just need to plug in your power cable, and if you are going to be using the argon setup, it just plugs in right here where it says gas, and it just kind of slides in until it stops. And you can always pull on it a little bit to make sure it doesn't come out, and you should be good to go. And this does come with an assortment of grounding cables, some that you can just clip onto your piece, or a full-on set of pliers. And these just plug in here at the top of the machine with the plus symbol. And if you want multiple of these set up at the same time, you can plug them into one another. And you will have to connect one of these to whatever piece you're going to be welding, so you can complete the circuit. That being said, we still need to set up our handpiece. And to do that, we need to pull off this end piece. That way we can get to this brass piece in the middle, which is a collet, and it's going to hold our electrode. And you just need to unscrew it a little bit to open it up. And this setup does come with 5 pre-sharpened electrodes. And they are sharpened to the point that you can actually prick your finger with these, so be careful. And you just want to slide the electrode into the collet with the sharp end pointing out. And leave a decent amount of this sticking out, but we still need to adjust this to the proper length, and we're going to be using the end of the handpiece to do this. And we just want the tip of the electrode to line up with the bottom of this groove. And you're going to be resting the bottom of the handpiece on this part of the collet. And just carefully slide the electrode down. And once you have it in place, just tighten up the collet, and then you can put the end of the handpiece back on. And if you do it this way, your electrode should be sticking out exactly how much it needs to be, which should be about 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeters. And now this is pretty much completely ready to use. And for now, I'm just going to put it into its holder, because now I need to set up the argon part of this. And with new canisters like this one, they usually have a plug in it that needs to be removed. And just using a pair of pliers to pull on the tab will usually make quick work of this. And this is when you need that regulator that came with the kit. Setting this up is pretty straightforward. Just put the end of this into the canister, and then just thread in this large hex part. And it's best to go slow with this and do it by hand at first, just to make sure you're not cross-threading anything and you won't have any leaks. And like I said before, this is completely optional. Argon is known as an inert gas, and all that really means is it's non-reactive, unlike water and oxygen, which is found in the air. And this basically just makes a little shield around where you're welding, and this will result in better welds and more consistent welds. But once you have everything hand tight, you can tighten this up with a wrench, and you plug in the other end of that hose right here. And just like before, push it in until it stops, and then pull on a little bit to make sure it doesn't slide out. But if you do need to take it out for some reason, all you have to do is push on this piece and pull the tube out. But with all that done, we can finally open up the canister itself, and as I'm doing this, you can see that one of the gauges start moving. And this is telling you the pressure of the canister. And this other gauge is how much pressure you're letting out through the regulator. And you're going to be controlling all of this with this knob here, which should be very loose like this when it's completely closed. So you're going to want to start turning this in the plus direction, and you just want to set this to around 7 liters per minute. And with that all done, this is ready to use. So with all that set up, we can finally turn this on with this switch on the back, and you'll see the front display turn on. But this doesn't fully turn on the unit. You also need to push the on button on the front, and you'll see the ready light turn on. And this display number on the front is actually how many joules or how much power you're going to be using. And you can raise and lower this using the plus and minus buttons on the front. And you're going to have to use different amounts of power, and this will depend on the material you're using and how big or small it is. And if you're wondering why this charge light isn't on, it's because we haven't activated anything yet. And to do this, all you need to do is touch your grounding tool to the end of the electrode. And if you just touch this to the electrode for a second, you can hear it make a beep noise. And if you leave it there for another second connected like this, it'll activate the welder and make a weld. And again, before you do any welding, make sure you have eye protection on, because this is extremely bright and will damage your eyes. And for my first example, I'm just going to use one of these sterling silver jump rings. And I find the best power setting for this jump ring is about 6 joules. And all you need to do is hold this using one of your grounding clips and touch it to the electrode. And there we go, and in about a second, this jump ring is now welded shut. So now let's actually use some of the chain that comes with this and make a permanent bracelet. And we're going to be using the silver chain that I've already cut to length with a little bit of extra on it. And this way you can adjust it for your client to make sure everything's going to be comfortable, because after you weld it, you can't adjust it again, unless you want to cut it off and do it again. And you're only going to need one jump ring to make this bracelet, but I'm also going to be adding this charm, so I'm going to need a second one. And there's definitely a lot of options of things that you can add into your chains, giving you and your client an absolute ton of options. And you can find these on our website along with a large selection of different types of chain. And if you're not familiar with jump rings, they're just small unconnected rings that you can bend open and connect things to one another, just like what I'm doing with this charm. And now if I take the chain and put it in here as well, I can then bend this jump ring closed, and everything is connected. And normally you're going to want to use a second pair of pliers to do this. But even though you close the jump ring, this is still your weakest link, and for the most part can easily be opened up again on accident. And just so you can see it better, here's a bigger jump ring. And you can see when we close it up, there's a small gap here. And you're going to want to make sure to get this as tight as possible before welding. And here's a chain already on the client's wrist with the jump ring already closed. And you can see the little bit of extra chain on here as well. But how I have it set right now is comfortable for the client, and I can fit one finger underneath it. And because we're going to be welding this on someone, I'm going to be using a small piece of leather to put between where I'm welding and their skin. And this also gives us a nice work area by keeping the chain kind of tight. And all I need to do now is hold my jump ring using my grounding pliers and touch the electrode to the open part of the jump ring. And after about a second, the welder will activate, and now that gap in the jump ring has been fused together. And after doing a weld, you want to clean this up because it will leave a little bit of residue, but you can make quick work of this just using the scratch brush that came with the kit. After that, all you need to do is cut off any excess chain, and this can be done quickly with the included flush cutters. And that's how quick and easy you can do permanent jewelry, using this very simple setup. But you're not limited to just doing permanent jewelry. This can also be used as a spot welder for other jewelry pieces. So as an example, if you use one of our templates to make a bail like this one, you can easily shape it into its usable bail form, and without any soldering setup whatsoever, you can easily just weld the end of this together, which only takes about a second as you can see, and only requires very minimal cleanup for it to look perfect. So a major time saving over soldering pieces together. And this can come in really handy if you're working on something that has stones in it that are heat sensitive. And on top of that, this takes up a very small footprint, so you can easily keep this on a small jeweler's bench. And it's pretty much ready to go at any time, so if you need to tack something together, you can at any moment, with no extra setup or mess. You can also use this to permanently attach posts to earrings, with just a few welds and a little bit of cleanup. So there's a lot of things that this can be used for other than just permanent jewelry, as you can see. And being able to work with thicker metals, or even finer metals with the same precision is pretty nice. And on top of that, these are very strong joints. And if you're planning on being mobile and not having electricity available for this, you can easily run this off of a battery pack. Overall, as you've seen in this video, this welder can be used in a wide variety of different ways. So if you're interested in picking up one of these for yourself, just head over to pepetools.com, where you can find a ton of jewelry making essentials, along with high quality US made tools. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us.